In a world where a decently equipped Ford Bronco or Jeep Wrangler is around $50,000 or $60,000, why wouldn't you take a look at one of these? This is the all-new Land Rover Defender, and it starts at about $57,000. So what we're going to do today is figure out why your money may be better spent with one of these rather than one of those Ford or Jeep products. And we're going to do that by taking a look outside. Inside, I'm going to show you some of the features and technology of this vehicle. We're going to try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable this SUV is. And then last but not least, we're going to take it out on the road to see what it's like to drive. Starting first with the exterior, this car can be described with one word: presence. This car just exudes coolness. Just look at the design. So many different types of textures and colors. You have these black vents all over the place. You have a white roof with these really cool white 20-inch wheels. The taillights themselves, super unique and really well styled. The back door opens like a barn door rather than a regular hatch. It's just a vehicle that you drive around, and I've had so many people comment on. You're seeing it here in Tasman blue, and while there's no shortage of really cool looking Broncos and Jeeps, to me this not only looks really cool but also screams class.
Let's start with one mildly annoying feature and one great feature. Most vehicles with keyless entry, when you put your hand in the door handle, they just open. Unfortunately, with the Defender, you have to press this button, a minor inconvenience but slightly annoying in a luxury vehicle. Now, the cool feature here is if you're at a stoplight, you're going to be there for a minute. If you press the brake pedal firmly, it will go into a hold position and you can remove your foot from the brake until at which point you want to go, you just press the gas pedal. It's kind of a nice little luxury feature that not too many cars actually do.
For powertrains, you have a couple options depending on which model you get. The base car can get a 2-liter turbocharged engine. This has a 6-cylinder, 3-liter turbocharged mild hybrid engine. It's mated to an 8-speed transmission. They tow about 8,000 pounds depending on which model and equipment that you get. Also worth noting the fuel economy, which isn't great, at least according to the EPA. 17 miles to the gallon city, 20 miles to the gallon highway. It's worth noting though, I've been getting better than that with my combined driving. We'll talk a little bit more about that once we get this thing out on the road. Hopping in the Defender, this does feel a bit upscale. It's not quite to the level of something like a German vehicle like a BMW because you have a little bit cheaper plastics, but overall the build quality is quite good, especially compared to something like a Jeep Wrangler or Ford Bronco. Now, the design itself is also really neat. You know, the exterior has all kinds of different colors, textures, accents, and there's no exception in here. It's just like that. You have some really cool Torx fasteners holding on these door cards. You can see the exposed exterior color here, which is really neat. A lot of the materials that you touch are a softer touch, higher quality material. The steering wheel is massive. The diameter of it is sort of funny. Really cool design as well. Like I talked about, having some of these white or beige accents here on the steering wheel, within the door, even in the dash itself where it says Defender. You have a pocket up there. There's excellent storage in here. As you can see, there's sort of storage pockets all over the place. My only real problem with this vehicle, and not really a problem, but a bit of a nitpick, is the infotainment itself. While you do have some physical controls, which is great for controlling your heating and air conditioning, there's a couple random things that are just kind of missing from a button perspective, and you have to go digging. So, for example, I am somebody who, on a nice day, likes to just turn off the climate control. There's no physical button to turn off the climate control. You have to dig through these menus. You have to go one click. You have to go to climate, then you have to press the on-off button, which is on the screen. To me, that's a little bit annoying. It's, again, a bit of an edge case, but something to keep in mind. Another button that's missing that you have to go through the same menu structure for is the sync button. The sync is if you want to have the driver and passenger at the same temperature, you have to go there as well. So a bit of an odd thing, but overall this infotainment just seems a little busy to me. It's not super intuitive. I'm sure you get used to it, but you know, jumping out of every other car into this car, it definitely takes some getting used to, but keep in mind, of course, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, that's mostly what you're going to use, so it's not a big deal. And I do like the fact that the screen is smaller, it's further down, it's not just tacked up onto the dash itself. You also have a all-digital display, which is really nice, has a lot of different features. Of course, if you're into off-roading, it can show you angles and where your tire angles and your roll angle and all kinds of stuff like that no one's going to use that buys one of these. Just massive amounts of headroom in this vehicle. I am 6'1", so I'm not a short person by any means, but I feel small in this vehicle. Huge headroom, same thing in the back. Tons of headroom, tons of space. The seats themselves are heated and cooled, and while they look pretty blah, they're pretty comfortable. They don't support you a whole ton. They're really no support for your thighs. You do have a little bit of bolster support for your low back, but overall they're fine. Let's try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable that rear hatch or rear barn door is before we take it out on the road.
When it comes to the bike test, the Defender did let me down a bit here. First, I tried my 29er extra large frame mountain bike. The rear opening is simply too small to fit this bike without taking the front wheel off. So next I tried my 29er road bike instead. This does fit with a little bit of fiddling. All in all, the rear opening is just a touch too narrow, even though there is plenty of room lengthwise. One positive is the rear seat headrests collapse, which makes folding the seats a lot easier than some cars which require you to move the front seats forward in order to fold them down. As always, if you enjoyed the bike test, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and leaving a comment below so you don't miss future videos.
What a beautiful day to take this Defender for a little ride down Lookout Mountain in Colorado. I have to say, I really enjoyed my week with this car. As journalists and press, we get these cars typically for a week at a time. And I've mentioned this before with certain cars, some of them are just really hard to give back. I really like this thing. There's a lot of character to it. And I think the thing that I think of first when I've got in this vehicle, and I started out comparing this a bit to some more expensive Jeeps and Broncos, the reason you pay a little bit more for something like this is how well built and quiet this is compared to those cars. I mean, if you've ever driven a new Bronco or a Jeep, it's like driving a box fan down the highway. I mean, they're so noisy, there's so much wind noise, there's so much road noise, and this thing is quiet. I mean, I know this is their cheaper offering. You have the Range Rover above this, which is even more refined, but I mean, man, this is nice, and you're paying for that little bit extra. You're really getting that. It's not fatiguing at all to drive on the highway or long distances. Between the quietness and then the suspension is so good. This one has optional air ride, which, you know, I go back and forth on. The air ride itself is fantastic. If you're going to lease it, I would say, yeah, get the air ride. It's awesome. I don't know if I'd want to own the air ride long term, being that, oh, we have a bit of a situation here. Did somebody slide off on these rocks? That's interesting. I've never seen that happen. So, you know, air ride gives me sort of pause if you want to own a car long term, because, you know, the shocks ultimately always go bad, the compressor goes bad. It can be very expensive to maintain. Once again, if you're going to lease it, not own this for that long, heck yeah, enjoy the air ride. I would love to drive one with the standard suspension, maybe the 2-liter as well, to try and keep price down. It's hard to say that a $60,000, $70,000 vehicle is a good value, but when you look at some of the competition, I just would rather have this. It's quieter, it rides fantastic. I did do a little bit of off-roading with this, and I'll show you some clips of that. Really light off-roading. I mean, to call it off-roading is a little bit of a stretch, mostly just kind of dirt road type stuff, but it's certainly capable of doing that. I don't know how many people are hardcore off-roading their Broncos and Jeeps anyways, frankly. A lot of people just kind of drive those to the mall. If you are somebody who is going to drive the car on the street more, do long distance driving, you really got to go with this, because like I said, it's way less fatiguing. This engine, this is the 6-cylinder turbo, makes fantastic power. We're going downhill here, so I don't need a whole ton of power, but nice that it's the turbocharged mild hybrid, so we're less affected by elevation like you would be a naturally aspirated motor. I'll get on it just a little bit here. Sounds pretty good too, actually. The transmission is great. It's the ZF 8-speed transmission. You guys have heard me talk about this transmission in a lot of different cars. They put it in a lot of German cars. A lot of BMWs have the ZF8, and the programming here is great. It's smooth, quick enough to respond. It's a great overall package. I really have to dig deep when I try to find some, little nuances that aren't so great. I think being that it is a mild hybrid, sometimes the brake acts a little bit inconsistent. I don't believe it's brake-by-wire. I tried to find this. I think it's traditional hydraulic brake, but with mild hybrid, you're still working through that handoff of regeneration, traditional brakes. It does feel a little bit odd at sometimes. Basically like a really vague pedal is what I'm getting at. It still stops the car plenty well. And one thing I will say that is positive about the brakes, especially out here where I've been driving this up and down the mountains, the mild hybrid is so nice because it gives you just that little bit of regen going downhill that I've really been able kind of just to maintain a speed going down a mountain, and I don't have to rely on the brakes, which is great, because if you're familiar with driving out here, you don't want to drag the brakes going down these mountains. You're going to set the brakes on fire and warp the hell out of your rotors.
A quick note on fuel economy. I drove the car a little over 400 miles in the week that I had it, and I averaged just over 21 miles to the gallon, which is actually better than the EPA rates this.
You don't have to worry about that with the mild hybrid because it does a lot of the slight engine braking for you. So really a fantastic use of the mild hybrid system. A lot of bikers today. This is why we're going downhill. You catch them a lot quicker when you're going uphill. You don't catch them very quick going downhill. This is the steering and everything is like pretty slow, but it's not meant to be fast in a big vehicle like this. I think in some ways it's nice because it's more linear and a little more accurate because it's not twitchy like a lot of steering systems are, that you turn it a little bit and it turns the car a whole ton. Giant wheel. Once again, it kind of just adds to this character. You have these cool little like skylights in the rear. It's a bit of a roly-poly ride. I think I talked about how well it rides in terms of soaking up bumps. It is a little bit roly-poly, like going back and forth here. There's quite a bit of body lean, but it's on big tires. It's meant to be a little bit off-road capable, but it still has plenty of body control. I'm going down this twisty road and it still handles super well. So it's not like you're really sacrificing anything in that regard. And I would much rather it be a softer ride than a firmer ride. What else is there to say? It's just a fantastic vehicle, and I think that for the money you do pretty well to buy one of these. Long-term reliability, tough to say. JLR doesn't have the best in terms of a track record of reliability, but let's be honest, Ford doesn't really either recently, and neither really does Chrysler, Jeeps. So, I mean, tough to say. Obviously probably going to be a little more expensive to fix this than some of those other products, but if you're willing to pay the premium, I don't think you can go wrong here. I've really enjoyed my time with this, and I've had so many positive comments about the looks of it. Yeah, I can't believe I'm recommending a $70,000 SUV, but it's something that if I was in the market, this would be something I would very much be interested in. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Great vehicle. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I would love to get my hands on a Range Rover next to see how much that takes this level up of sophistication. But right here, this is a sweet spot. So Appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. Think about hitting that like and subscribe button if you did make it this far, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.